Hi, I'm Jasmine and this is Kaylin. We're from Samuel's Ranch Sustainable. Please join us as we take a virtual wildflower walk. Hopefully next spring we'll be able to have you guys out here to do it in person. But for now, please join us as we enjoy the views and the flowers that are blooming this May. Kaylin and Abby and I are going to walk out to one of our lookout points where we can look out over the bay and Lake Curry. If you do a guided hike with us, you can choose whether you want to have our doggy docents, Kaylin and Abby, join us, or if you prefer to hike alone. Unfortunately, with our livestock and our livestock guardian dogs, we can't have you bring your pets. But these girls, especially Abby, are more than ready to give you lots of love and attention on your hike. This is an example of our mixed conifer ecosystem type. So the dominant trees kind of shift from being solely oaks to oaks mixed in with ghost pine, Pinus sabiniana. Here's one of our elderberries. Elderberry is technically a shrub, but it gets almost to the size of a tree. This is the host plant for the threatened valley longhorn elderberry beetle. And the berries and the nectar are very valuable and important for wildlife. It's one of the reasons we have such a healthy bird population. Oh, there you go. First really good view of Lake Curry. Forgive my amateur photography skills, but if you are a photographer and you'd like to come out here and take some pictures, we're happy to host. We'd love to get somebody to do these views justice. If you're recently engaged or a graduate and you're looking for somewhere to do some photos, we're open to that as well. Our only requirements there are that if you really, really want to wear high heels, you're going to have to wear your tennis shoes to the site, put your heels on just to stand, and then put your tennis shoes back on. Because this is really not stiletto territory. Good girls. Back when my grandfather was young, we used to have family that lived right down by Lake Curry, and they would walk back and forth to visit each other. Back then they walked miles and miles in a day and didn't even bat an eye about it. See if you can see some of the terrain that they needed to cover. It's pretty straight down from here. Several valleys and dips. And that, in the distance, is Mount Diablo. So again, that is Lake Curry, looking out over the bay with Mount Diablo in the distance. And if you come on one of our guided walks, we would definitely take this route and you could enjoy this view. And the girls are excited to already go up the next stretch of the walk we usually take. I hope you join us. Just a quick snippet of our biodiversity here. Going left to right without moving, we have manzanita, ghost pine. There's some very, very tall mountain mahogany. We've got much shorter down there, some scrub oak or live oak. Very tall happy toyon. That toyon's over 20 feet tall. We have a blue oak, another ghost pine, and then a very successful manzanita. The manzanita berries are very valuable for the wildlife, and actually our black bears really depend on the manzanita. Here we have a beautiful Quercus chrysolepis, or golden cup live oak. And you can kind of see from here, but there's a gold, dusty looking fuzz on the underside of the leaves. And here is the underside of those leaves. You can see that gold dusting, and it does rub off if you scrape it. We have Quercus douglasii here, the blue oak. Underneath it we have some of our California native bunch grasses. We have western wheatgrass blowing in the breeze there. If we pan around a little bit, we've got some beautiful Arctostaphylos, some manzanita. That with the long awns is called squirrel tail. It's a native grass, and it looks kind of scary because of those long awns, but they're not as barbed as some of those invasive species that we have, and they're also very soft compared to those invasives. And then looking out even further, that grass that's waving in the breeze over there is a Melica californica, another native grass. Again, overlooking the valley. Big, beautiful black oak. Probably a few hundred years old. That lovely trunk structure. We have a patch, neither are blooming, of yarrow. You might recognize the name Achillea millifolia. Now that millifolia is like thousands of leaves. You can see how finely divided each single leaf is into many, many little leaflets. That'll have white flowers. And then this is a coyote mint. So it's got that nice minty smell. And when it blooms, it'll have lovely purple, almost a ball of purple flowers. Looking down here, we have a native pea. We call it the wild sweet pea. And then farther back than that is the silver bush lupin. So this is one of my favorite species. This is silver bush lupin, Lupinus albifrons. And hopefully you can see how silvery and reflective these leaves are. Now, earlier in the spring, this plant was just covered in these beautiful purple blooms. And you can see how long, there's a few left. They start blooming at the base. So this inflorescence was from here to here. That's a 1.5 foot long purple blooms it would have had a couple weeks ago. And then in the background, there's a yarrow flower. Those white flowers, they're a little more common. You've probably seen them around. Yes, but this is my favorite. Let's see if we can get closer to that. Yeah, that beautiful purple. And when they start out, they actually have a bit more diversity in the color. They'll have a white spot on the banner to attract the pollinators. So they'll start out purple with a white or yellow spot on the banner petal. Here we came a little farther down the trail, and here's a silver bush lupin that's not as far along, and you can see what I'm talking about. These blossoms started first. You can see after the color change. This one's closer to just opening, so it's got more colorful flowers, and it is again just trying to attract pollinators to this spot to sit here so that they can get where they need to be to pollinate. This is Iris Fernaldii. So some of you might be familiar with Douglasii, the one that's blues and purples, but this is our local native iris. This beautiful cream ivory color. If you're familiar with domesticated irises, these native ones are just thinner versions. They have more narrow, elongated leaves and falls. See, the leaves are just a little bit broader than the average grass. Very popular with pollinators. Here's a fun native shrub. This is California coffeeberry, Frangula californica. It's really got not any relation to the coffee that we drink, but it does create a berry. See those beautiful leaves, nice vein structure. It's a good habitat shrub for our birds. This is Chemise, Adenostoma fasciculatum, and it's a late flowering chaparral species. It's got these cute little tiny white flowers. I'm having difficulty getting into focus. Oh, come on. Yes. Each flower is tiny, but when this whole bush is covered in white and all of its neighbors are covered in white, it's quite a dramatic effect. Look at all the fairy lanterns. That is Calochordus amabilis, golden fairy lanterns, or we just call them fairy lanterns. Some people also call them golden globe lilies. We'll go in closer. Close up of the fairy lanterns here. You can see. Now these are actually in the same genus, so closely related to Mariposa lilies. And if you spread them open a little bit, you can actually see the family resemblance better. They have similar speckles on the insides of those petals. And this is one of my favorite wildflowers. Abby, do you like them? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Beautiful. We have one of the twining Diglostomas over there trying to climb up a fairy lantern, but they don't get very tall, so it's not going to get very high either. This is Umbularia californica, or as you might have learned it, Pacific Bay laurel or California bay. But a lot of the old families and the locals call this pepperwood, so I grew up calling it pepperwood. Pepperwood has these intensely aromatic leaves. It can be used in cooking similar to the European bay leaf. Native Americans used it for various different remedies. It's a very fun plant. We have some Pinus sabiniana, some of the ghost pine, other people call it gray pine, foothill pine. Manzanita, black oak. Here we have graceful Clarkia, Clarkia gracilis. Now a lot of the pictures I've seen have this kind of bicolored look to them, but here most of ours actually are this solid, darker color for most of their growth. And we're just surrounded by this Madia, which is also a native. Here's another one of those graceful Clarkia with that darker purple color. And you can see they come right up tall. And so do these Madia. Now the Madia is a tarweed, so it does have an aroma to it, and it does have glandular hairs. And you can see the little drops of compound that give it that scent. More of the graceful Clarkia. This is my favorite Clarkia species. This is called Red Ribbon. And it's hard for the camera to pick it up, but it is actually in person an almost glowing magenta. And the area that it's growing is actually fairly low nutrient soil, but it just thrives. See if we can get a closer look. Yeah, that makes the color even a little bit harder to see. Close up on that Clarkia, that red ribbon. And you can kind of see the ribboniness of the petals. Here we have a sticky cinquefoil, some of the golden fairy lanterns. This is a melica, that's another native grass. Clarkia. This is called woolly sunflower, native aster. This one, native Madia. Soaproot, one of my favorites. And looks like it got broken off, but this is what I grew up calling wild cucumber. Some people call it manroot. This is Yerba Santa, or All Saints herbs. It's a native, and as you can see, pollinators love those little bell-shaped flowers. It's thought to have medicinal properties, but we just like it because it's native that the pollinators love. This is our native honeysuckle, and you can see the bees just love it. See if we can find a flower to look at that won't disturb a bee. There we go. Opposite leaves. And the flowers are not too dissimilar from the honeysuckle that you can find in a garden store. I'm looking at this beautiful pitcher sage, and there's some species of bee, the wind, taking a nap inside. So that's kind of fun. Now, pitcher sage smells amazing, and it's not in the genus Artemisia, which is what a lot of us think of as the true sages. Pitcher sage is just the common name. But these leaves are very fuzzy and deliciously aromatic. You should smell this after a nice rain. This is Rayless arnica. An arnica with no ray flowers. Has only little disc flowers. Really soft, fuzzy leaves. And this is a native. There we go. That's more in focus, barely. So this is something that provides a lot of good pollen and nectar to our pollinators. Likes to grow in the understory. You can see from the leaf litter We are in a black oak woodland. These are Diclostoma, which is the genus name, and which led to the common name blue dix. Other people, myself included, call these wild hyacinths. Having problems with focus here. So this is often called a twining brodea or a cobra lily, but it's actually in Diclostoma. That's the genus. And it exhibits my favorite kind of tropism, thigmotropism. So when this plant touches something, it automatically wraps around it, and the idea is to use that thing to reach up to the sun, but sometimes when the only things it can grab onto are grasses or other flexible herbaceous plants, it doesn't actually get itself up to the sun very well by doing that. Let's trace this guy. It goes back, loops around, kind of ties itself almost in a knot, trying to use grasses to get up to the sun. Loops around some more, all the way back here. So it actually did not climb very high up towards the sky, but what a fun journey it's had. All of this here is ceanothus, or California lilac, and most of it's not blooming right now, but I'll try to loop in a video or at least some pictures from when it is blooming. We have, at least 3 different species. They're kind of, at least 4 different species. Some of them can hybridize, so it can be a little difficult to tell which species you're looking at, but we have white, purple, and blue colored flowers at the right time of the spring. Now, here are some of the plants that we're grazing for, and also kind of grazing to suppress. Now, you might see a lot of green here compared to down in the valley. There are a couple reasons for that. One, we're at higher elevation. At about 2,500 on average, our seasons come a little bit later than in the valley. Another is orographic effect, or rain shadow. We're up on the mountain. We're on the western facing aspect of the mountain, so the rain comes from the Bay Area and it hits us first, and we actually create a rain shadow, so Vacaville is drier than Samuel's Ranch is. But another reason is that we have more native plants. Now, our native bunch grasses, like this wheatgrass here, are going to stay greener much longer than the annuals. If you see the dry stuff here, everything that's already turned brown, there's more over by Abby. Now, that dead spot is actually a species composition change. There's more of this annual, non-native, smooth brome, and it's already dried, because annuals just live to set seed and die. There's no real purpose for them for staying long into the season. They will dry up. But we have all of these big, beautiful bunch grasses that you can see behind us here, and these stay greener much, much longer. So by encouraging these natives, this one is California brome. Same genus is this little thing that's all dried up. But by encouraging these natives, we're actually extending our good forage quality grazing season longer into the year, keeping our pasture greener longer. These bunch grasses also have deeper root systems. They're storing more carbon, which is important for offsetting greenhouse gas emissions. Yeah, you can see all that bright green are those little bunch grasses. The softer, fuzzier greens are some of them are Madia. That's not. But what's green right now in general is going to be native, and what's brown is going to be the non-natives. Now, a lot of people cleared their shrubs off of their ranches. It was part of the oak removal incentive. Basically, get rid of all the woody stuff so that the grass would grow better. That was what people thought. But the thing is, the woody stuff creates nice little micro ecosystems that are wetter and cooler and keep the grass growing greener longer. Even the non-natives, I'll show you that in a different area on the ranch. You'll notice here, this coyote bush has been grazed, browsed, since it's a shrub, we call it browsing. Browsed up pretty close to the top. It's at about my collarbone level that the sheep very easily reach. And this is actually also extending our grazing season. When even the bunch grasses have died back to their bases, that coyote brush is still going to be green. Even that sticky monkey flower, which is looking fabulous right now, we grazed that. We grazed that in December. Yeah, that one in December. And it's doing well. We grazed this silver bush lupin. It had a riot of blooms, and now it's got a lot of seed production. To the untrained eye, you wouldn't know that was grazed. Let's look at these beautiful irises. We grazed this, and look at how happy the iris are. Look at how well they've come back. We have little baby silver bush lupin in there. Yeah. So, oh, there's a wood rat nest in there. Can you guys see it? What looks like a pile of sticks. They're a native rodent, and they actually make these really architecturally interesting mounds. And they've been known to bring in pepperwood leaves to keep fleas away from themselves. So they're very clever little rodents. They don't bother you. They don't steal food or anything. They're not carrying disease. They don't interact with humans. They're very shy. I've only seen one alive twice, and I've lived on this ranch 30 years. They're out there, but they're very shy. The manzanita, you can see that it was browsed, but obviously not killed, and it's got good seed production this year in its berries. So when I say that I'm grazing for natives, these are some of the natives that I'm talking about. Trying to promote these plants and the ecosystem functions that they provide. Little baby bunch grass. This is probably a few years old, maybe 5. But this bunch will get wider and wider as it ages. Oh, here's a good spot to look at that. Trees creating a green oasis. Because we do have some non-natives that are still green, only under the trees. This is a non-native. We don't love it, but we also don't hate it. This is called hedgehog dogtail grass, and it's not native to North America. It came in, I want to say 2011 was when it got tracked onto the ranch, probably by a dirt bike. And it's really taken off. But you can see how being under this beautiful black oak has protected it from drying out. You can really see the contrast. That wasn't from a fence line. That's the shadow contrast from where the oak shelters it from direct sunlight. I just love these irises. And yes, the sheep will eat them. They will graze it right down, but as long as you don't do it every year, and not always at the same time, let them have their blooming period, they'll thrive. Just look at them, they're doing really well. And a lot of our natives need some amount of bare ground. they need that to spread. So here's one of our native bunch grasses. Notice how tall, and some of these will get taller than me. This one's not done growing. But once the seeds are ripe, the wind blows and whips them around. The seeds need to be flung into some bare soil. These are not very competitive when they first start out. So we are trying to create these little pockets of bare soil so that when the seeds land, they can connect. Abby's helping here with this. They can connect and start growing. Whereas if they fell into a bunch of thatch from, heaven help us, a plant like Medusa head, which, knock on wood, we don't have here yet, they just can't compete with that. They need bare soil to get established. So we do try to provide little pockets of bare soil for them. And again, we're not upset by having some shrubs. The sheep will climb in the shrubs. They'll eat the shrubs. Now, grazing and browsing are learned behaviors. So the lambs will learn from their peers and from their mothers what's good to eat. That's why sheep from different places might have slightly different preferences, things that they'll choose to eat first and try first. I know some people who have said their sheep will not eat the coyote brush. But our sheep, especially some individuals, it is their preference. It's the first thing they go for, is the coyote brush. I know at least one other rancher whose sheep are the same way. And those sheep live in the Sierra foothills, far, far away from mine. No genetic connection at all. See, all of this was grazed or browsed, and look at how it's come back. We've seen 4 different species of lupin. I haven't pointed them all out as we're walking by, but I mentioned the silver bush. This is a broadleaf lupin. This is called summer lupin. And see if I find miniature lupin again. Yeah, this was all grazed. And at the time we finished grazing, because we're trying to create a little bit of bare ground, it looked pretty bad to the untrained eye, but look at how it's bounced back. It's lush. This is a native species. It's a nitrogen fixer, which means it's basically pumping natural fertilizer from the sky that it makes in root nodules into the soil. Look at all these beautiful native bunch grasses we have here. And these will stay green after everything else is dried up. Oop, we have some fairy lanterns. Yes. One of my favorites. Yeah, let me see. Get another angle. Can you see all those bunch grasses? I love them. Okay. Yeah, just bunch grass view. I am a plant nerd. So thank you for watching and listening to that. I hope I'm not making you guys seasick with my walking and talking. But you can see none of the native plants have been removed from the system by our grazing, which is a fear that some folks have. Grazing is a tool, and it's like any other tool. You can use it to build something beautiful if you know what you're doing, or you can maybe make a big mess, possibly injure someone. It's like using a chainsaw. You can make beautiful chainsaw art, or you can accidentally cut yourself. You just need to know what you're working with and what you're doing. So, and this is one of those places where terrain is very different and the species composition is very different in a very short amount of space, right? I just moved from a really chaparral-y patch into this faux oak woodland. We have walnuts in place of the oaks. This is actually one of our walnut orchards. part of it that I'm walking through. This isn't the best. This variety isn't dealing well with climate change. But so the sheep do graze, whoop, under this orchard and create habitat for the plants and for the animals. There's usually quail coming through here. Thank you so much for watching today, especially if you made it all the way to the end here. If you'd like to get to see more of Kaylin or our other animals, the sheep, the other dogs, please follow us on Instagram at Samuels Ranch Sustainable or on Facebook, Samuels Ranch Sustainable. If you have questions for us, please reach out at samuelsranch@gmail.com. And just stay tuned. We hope to be able to offer opportunities for you to come out and meet our animals and hike our beautiful ranch sometime in the near future. Thanks